I'll let you know when I see it on my Facebook feed, because then they'll pop up on yours. As we are recording, this is also going on my podcast channel, Bridges Live. So for you people who are following on Instagram and Periscope and YouTube and all the other channels I have out there, welcome to Black Coffee Conversations. Hi, I'm Dr. Paul Dyer. I'm going to introduce you to my panel of men in this time of our conversation. And we have Caleb Johnson, my son over here. And then we have Mr. Russ Williams, who's a transitional coach coming out of New York. And then we have Mr. Wesley Webb, who is the president of 100 Black Men group of Baltimore. And then we have Mr. Chris, he call himself Smooth, Williams, and he's also a public speaker and a facilitator. And then we have Mr. Malik himself, Means. How you doing? Gentlemen, welcome to Black Coffee Conversation. I'm so happy to have these conversations. Most of you people who know, watched this just recently, I just had women on talking about a conversation that we need to have. And we're going to have our conversations because as men, we look at things a little bit differently and we feel things a little bit differently. We know what's going on in our system, our society, and I think we need to have a conversation, and this is the conversation. Not that this is the end of a conversation or the only beginning of a conversation, but we definitely need to hash this out about what we're feeling right now. Me personally, I know as I had the conversation with my wife and women, I know I'm hurt, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm afraid for my son, my nephews, my brothers of all color, my color here, and I'm suffering. I'm in pain. It's trauma.
Yeah, you know what, Dr. Paul, I'm with you, those same sentiments, and I'm also exhausted too. It feels like there's like a large weight on black males, so I'm exhausted and I'm frustrated as well. Those are my sentiments.
Well, gentlemen, I definitely agree. Well, to start off things, the caption of a Caucasian officer with his knee in the neck of a larger African-American man, other officers watching, and their facial expression basically saying, I would love to help, but I can't, basically is a microcosm of the life of a black man. And again, that hurts me most because when you talk about your emotions, oftentimes as men, especially black men, we don't use all of our emotions correctly. We're hurt, we're sad, we're frustrated. We rarely show those emotions or express those. Our default is always anger. And in this case here, anger is definitely an emotion that comes out, but those other emotions that we just shared, we don't share enough to express ourselves. That does not mean I'm saying that we have brought this on ourselves, but we have to make sure among ourselves in discussions like this, we share our other emotions and don't always go to the default, which is anger.
Yeah, you know what? I agree with you, Chris, but I feel like we're in a time right now where we really have to be strategic. All right, so Mike Brown, Eric Gardner, Tamir Rice, Trayvon Martin, those names, like this latest name is going to get added to those names, right? We've seen this before. We've seen this movie before, right? What are we going to do about it, right? And that's really where I am right now. I want us as a community to start. I understand the emotions, but once we get past that, once we tear up our neighborhoods, then what? What are we going to do strategically to avoid this, to change this? And that's really where I am right now. That's the conversation that I want to have.
Yeah, I think we need to organize too. Because right now with the protests, we're not too organized. Like there's a lot of riots going on, but we're not organized in what we need to do. There's just a lot of chaos going on. So I feel like we just need to be more organized too in how we protest.
Yeah, I think that's really insightful on that aspect of things, because you know, just like Chris was talking about, they don't know how to effectively channel their anger. And the thing is about being strategic, very important. You know, the thing is, we know on it. So this goes back to us once again being more in tune with what's going on in the world as far as issues that impact our communities. We have to be able to vote. We have to be able to effectively engage candidates so that we exactly know, essentially, have a good idea of who we're voting for and what we're getting. You know, it's just not enough to say, well, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican, but those policies which are put forward is what's going to be impacting our communities. And so one thing which I will say, some of these parties have a masterful job of having people vote against their interests, and we have to be able to see through and have those type of discussions. You know, what folks in our community, not everyone's political. I mean, they just don't know. They let their emotions with the candidate. You know, I'm going to vote for him because of this.
You know what? One of the things I think we're going to touch on, and I'm glad we're in this type of conversation too, is that there's misinformation. You know, there's not a place of a true, even I can't say a truth of resources, but a resource where I go to, say, like Malik, and I say, hey, I heard this. Malik says, man, that is wrong. I'm telling you, this is what I know. This is what I heard. This is what I read. Oh, Chris comes in. So we don't have these conversations, and what goes on is, this is what I heard. Boom. This is what I'm going to believe. And I'm going to go right with it. And now I'm fucked up and confused.
Yeah, but you know what? That's by design.
What?
This system is baked in, right, to confuse us, to keep us unaware. All right? And I really want to just kind of like back it up for a second, right? Because we got to understand, like, slavery started 1526, right? It ended in 1865. That's 300 plus years of slavery, where they had an opportunity to basically create a system. Like, I'm an entrepreneur, so one of the things they really tell you to be an entrepreneur is set up systems, put systems in place, right? Set up a process, right? So racism is built into this country. It's already a system, it's a process in place, right? We've only been out of slavery for less than 100 years, right? And after slavery, then it was segregation, right? So this is already built in. It's implicit bias, implicit racism. Like, the police force has it. We all have it. White people, black people, we all have it. So it can't really be a shock to you when you see, like, a police officer treating a black person that way, because police force comes from the slave patrol, right? And their whole job was to reinforce the slave master's rules. That's what we have today.
But even after we know that, if we're going to be strategic, how do we teach our youth? How do we teach the other person that may not know how strategic this is and how systematic it is, so we can get into our higher conscious level, so then we can proceed to be better? So we've missed it.
Well, we've been taught that the police officer is supposed to protect us. So you're not taught that the system from slavery, at least this new generation, at least when I was growing up, I was always taught police officers, firefighters, they're here to help us. But upon research upon myself and understanding and learning, like you said, Malik, the system isn't built for us to succeed. And when you do your own research, you realize that, but there are patterns out here, systems that tell us that. They'll tell you, yes, we're here to help you. They'll even throw you a bone once in a while. We'll show you we're here to help you. But the patterns, as you said, Malik, person after person, shows us that this system doesn't work for us.
Well, hold
Now,
on.
going emotions really quickly with the emotions. The emotional point I'm talking about to start it off, I think it's a good groundwork is emotionally you're taught and you think you're here to help me.
Well, the only thing Chris, the only thing I'm going to say, I guess for me, and we talked about this before in another panel, I think men have dropped the ball collectively. My son, Caleb, we've talked about this since you've been small. His uncles have talked to him since he's been small about not just about what it is, but what they look at you at. So, Caleb, I mean,
how to approach the situation too.
Right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, like you said, Dr. Paul, we had that panel discussion before. We talked about how us as like older black males, we have dropped the ball in that case. But now it's an opportunity for us to pick up the ball and run with it. Take the initiative to take a young person like a Caleb by your side. Talk to him about the experiences that you had and lead them in the right direction. Because it's all about the leadership right now. Right now, they don't know how to approach it because they've never been told and never been taught to how to lead. But it's up to us as black males who are currently living now. Instead of us dropping the ball, we need to take each person, where you stand right now. Like for yourself, Caleb, Dr. Paul, you talk to Caleb. I got nephews. Me talking to my nephews. Go do the work where you stand at right now. Because we dropped the ball, but we have an opportunity to make an effort to talk to these young people so they'll know the direction, the way to go.
Caleb,
You know what? I'm going to push back on that.
Okay.
Because, listen, we know this government was founded and built by white men for the protection of white men.
Right.
Right? Black people, black men weren't in the equation. All right? So let's start with that. Right? If we're looking to change this system, then we have to come together and vote. Right? But what's our agenda? Right? What are we voting for? Right? I'm in New York, right? I used to have a program called Open Lines, right? And one of the things they used to say all the time is left wing, right wing, it's still part of the same bird.
Right.
So what's our agenda, right? Collectively, right? What do we want? I know, for instance, Hakeem Jeffries co-sponsored a bill, HR 4408, the Eric Gardner regulation, basically outlawing chokeholds, right? The House passed it, the Senate has ignored it, right? And the reason they are able to ignore it is because collectively we don't have anybody really advocating that point. Major corporations spend millions of dollars a year for lobbyists. Who's lobbying our causes in Washington? Right?
Well,
where's that political power coming from? That political pressure coming from?
Where is that? Who's teaching our kids in schools? So we don't even know where is our. We talked about. I know Wesley's very deeply involved in mentorship with children, but we are not actually teaching our children this process. So now they're scared. Hell, I'm scared. I've not been in prison or anything like that. I've been to jail, but I don't do anything. But when I see flashlights behind me, my heart races. That's great. I'm over 50 years old. It's not like I get pulled over all that often. It's not like I'm doing anything ever wrong. But when the lights are behind me and those cherries hit, my heart is and I'm checking my own self. We're so embedded in the trauma that we've had and are having and continues to have. We can't, and then I know by teaching consciousness, once you enact trauma that you're in, you forget about your higher thought level of, I'm okay. I am right. I am doing the right thing. Why should I be afraid? So, is it part of a systematic game? Yeah, probably. I agree. But it's even hard for me, and I'm supposed to be well-traveled, well-educated, and even then, I still get my heart jumping out of my chest every time the cherries come on. I ain't did shit wrong.
Yeah. Doc, why are you afraid? Because I experienced the same thing.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming someone else. Why are you afraid?
Because I don't want to die. That's really what it is. I don't want to get killed. I've been in combat, and I don't want to.
Why are you afraid? Again, it's a rhetorical question.
Yeah.
You haven't done anything wrong. Why are you afraid? I feel the same way. I'm assuming everyone else experienced the same situation. Why are we afraid and we haven't done anything wrong? Again, I go back to the caption. The caption is the epitome of the life of a black man.
Mm-hmm.
You have people there who can help you, and they're staring there and they won't help you. And this guy, who is inferior to you, has his knee on your neck. That's why you're afraid.
Yeah.
Yep, it all goes back to that old song by KRS-One, the philosopher. Who protects us from you? You know, he's talking about that in the police and everything like that. So, you know, but just to piggyback on Malik's point when he talked about voting, I think Malik and everybody out there, it starts on the local level first in terms of voting. It is all about what is your ask? What are we asking for? That's the most important thing. What are we asking for? Like, what do we want? The agenda? What is the agenda? What are we asking for? So what is the ask? But again, in terms of the voting, it starts at that local level.
So that's key because you got representing you, you know, in that aspect. You know, you got to become intimately familiar with those people who are going to be making rules and with these.
So, I mean, I know my son's on here, Caleb. I got a direct question for you. It's like, what is your conversation? Because our conversation as this age men is different than your conversation you're having at your age and in school and around. What's those conversations like? What is that? What are you hearing and what are you feeling?
There's a lot of talk about, like, even Donald Trump. There's a lot of racism, like, comments going on right now. Like, a lot of people are talking about racism, and I think it's misinterpreted that Donald Trump is a racist president. I don't think he's the best president, but I think the media is overplaying it, making it more of a racial war than it needs to be. You know, like, Donald Trump, in his tweet, he said thugs are tearing down the city, but to me, what I personally thought he meant by thugs was people that aren't from Minneapolis are burning down cities, are burning down buildings in Minneapolis. Because the mayor did come out in Minneapolis saying that most of the people that are burning down the buildings are not from Minneapolis.
So
a lot of the people that are violently burning things down, he's saying those are the thugs, but the media wants to flip that and say Donald Trump is a racist. But Barack Obama called the Baltimore Riders thugs in 2015. But it's the same situation. Mm-hmm. So I'm just trying to, I want it to be an even playing ground. There's a lot of misinformation when it comes to that.
And you know what's interesting about that? So Donald Trump called the rioters, people upset because another black man was killed by the police, thugs. There was a protest in Wisconsin and all around the country where white men were strapped and guns on a Capitol. You don't hear outrage about that, right? And also there's a video going around about a white police officer in Minnesota walking by, all like, you know, he's covered, but he has a hammer breaking windows, right? But you don't hear anything. So once again, that's systematic, right? Donald Trump is not the problem. He's a symptom of the problem, right? And basically, he's not savvy enough to kind of hide his racism. So people love him for that because they think he's straightforward. But he's representing the views of a lot of other people who just aren't comfortable enough to say it, right? He represents this country. So it's really important that we understand that.
But the thing is, right now, it's either you're for or against Trump. If you're a Trump supporter, that means you're racist. That's the big thing being put on people right now. If you're a Trump supporter, that means you're racist.
Yeah, you know what? So I would like push back on that because we get into this thing of charismatic leader, right? So Trump is charismatic, but, and we've talked about this on our podcast, the conservatives weren't feeling Trump. Like, he is in our interest, right? Trump is in, okay, great. You want our support? You know, we need that VP pick to be conservative. They got picks. We need you to appoint conservative judges to the Supreme Court. Boom, they got 2 of them. We need you to fill the courts, the federal courts, with conservative judges. They got that. So they went for him with an axe and said, hey, you want our support, here's what you have to do. What do we collectively as a community, what's our act? What do we ask them for? Right? Once again, forget party affiliation.
Right.
That's just charismatic. But what do we want? Right? When I say strategic, that's what I'm talking about.
And you know, I agree because, you know, we have talked about changing the narrative. You know, the narrative that they paint for certain people over people, that is to create that division and that divide, not only within your community, but within yourself.
Yeah. I mean, listen, we live in a capitalist society. Let's not, forget capitalism and racism run parallel to each other. Right? This country is built off of our backs. Right? During and it was free labor. All right. So in 1954, racism didn't go away. Right. What they did was they exported it. So now they can get cheap labor in other countries.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then they're looking at us after slavery. They're looking at the black service class and they're like, yo, what do we do with them? Right. They've served their purpose. Right. So it was either ship them off to Africa, but they only see it, they're only comfortable with us in a service position, right? And if somebody beyond that makes it, then they're exception. That's the exception. That's not the rule, right? And it's really important that we teach our kids that and say, yo, what do we want? And let's start on a local level,
Right.
Let's kind of take over our community,
Right.
Who really controls school boards? Who's controlling the curriculum that our kids teach?
Right.
And you know, Malik, just to piggyback on that, those people that you're talking about, those are those are the essential workers that are being going back to work. So just to piggyback on that, on non-settlement on that, yep, you make a great point on that.
And I'll stress this implicit bias. We all have it, whether you're black or white, right? We know, and once again, we don't help ourselves because people once again, they'll let a few through, right? And those are the exceptions. And those few will really capitalize off of capitalism and make a lot of money. So now everyone's looking at them and say, hey, that's the model, right? So when you turn on your TV, right, they'll show you a negative image of a black person. Even the young black boy at school, he's thinking that's what's cool. I want to be like that. All right? So they love our culture. Don't get that wrong. They love black culture. They don't love black people. Like the black person, the black body, they don't love that. And once again, it's important that we teach that to our youth, right? So they're prepared. And once again, what's our ask? What are we asking for? What do we need for our vote?
So you know, one of the things I've noticed, with whether it be mentoring kids, mentoring people, mentoring my community, I don't think we have enough vocal black leaders publicly talking about our narrative. Like, if we can look as black men, and what's the black man we look to hopefully come on and say, hey, chill out, calm down. This is our narrative, and this is what they're trying to do to you. We don't have that situation on a. And I know we don't control, again, Malik, you're right, because systematically, we don't control the media. We don't have our own media production. We're trying to. We have our Tyler Perry's who's trying. We have our, what's Brian, what's the guy who sued Comcast? Brian, I mean, we have him trying to do that, but we don't, if you don't know that he's doing that, how many of the black community know that he has been doing that and pushing back on this? but we still turn on these BETs, which is owned by Comcast. We still turn on the media that is giving us our own narrative. And then until we can get into the homes of some homes with single fathers, single mothers, single parents, no, these kids are running rampant by themselves, where we can say, hey, here's the information, here's the system that you're in, here's how to process it, and here's how to actually, move through it, and here's how to come above it.
Well, I think the mentoring is huge. I've been a part of a program with Malik that he had. I've spoken there. I've done a mentoring program myself where Russ has spoken. It's so important for people who are in your community to be able to be mentors to these young men. I have so much respect for Caleb's age group. I've mentored guys in that group because their thought process is totally different from ours. Mm-hmm. Just from listening to him speak open, again, they're very aggressive. They understand what they want, and they're able to usually keep their emotions intact. But when they're angry, they're going to let you know. What I've seen from this group, Caleb, correct me if I'm wrong, they're not afraid to die for what's right or what they believe. They will not.
We're in an age where we just know how much false information there is too. And it seems like every media station doesn't have the best interest. No media station. Like, we have no media outlets to give people solid information to help them. Like CNN, Fox News, I can't watch those stations. Watching those people, the anchors up there acting, it's just, I can see straight through it. And most people my age can see straight through how fake it is.
So, Caleb, where do you go for your source of information?
I do YouTubers. A lot of big subscribe, like Officer Tatum, Candace Owen, David Icke. There's a few. I like individual journalists rather than going to a big news station that has an agenda for something. I'd rather go to an individual journalist who has my best interests and go that way.
Yeah, but you know what? There's an issue with that as well, because if you're listening and you're taking in all the information that agrees with you, what's going to challenge that mentality and mindset? Yeah. All right? So I agree. Like, listen, we live in a capitalist society. Let me repeat that. Right? Trump is good television because he's provocative. He brings the viewers to, like, the channel which drives ad revenue, which drives profit. So let's say that, right? It's important that you're able to grow, and the only way you're going to grow is to be uncomfortable. So you got to get uncomfortable information, right? You got to kind of, like, go in a comfortable situation, right? And I know all of us as black men, once again, I'm going to go back to our podcast. We had this conversation about white gays, right? Being one of the only black men in a room full of white people, they're looking at you to represent blackness, right? Like right now, during this situation, right? How many of your white friends have called you up and said, hey, what's going on? Like, what are they doing? Right? They're looking at you to be that spokesperson for everything black, right? What do we do with that information?
Yeah,
what are your white colleagues? What are your white friends like doing? Are they outraged? Right? Are they ready to go up there and march or do something? Well, Malik, Caleb, and I know he can defend himself. I'm gonna just toss this out. You can't avoid the information to challenge you. It's out there.
Yeah, there's a ton of information out there.
I think what his group does, and like he said it, they will go and get the information and follow up and find out what they feel is right or wrong, rather than someone being their quote-unquote leader and telling them. And I've learned so much from this group. Like you brought up an example. I can give you a great example. I've mentored young men who are, again, straight young men. Mm-hmm. But these guys have gay friends, and they don't have any problem with it. And they'll let you know, listen, Chris, this is my boy, but he's gay. Now, I have friends who would never come out and say that. But they weren't uncomfortable because they understand, they know who they are, where they stand. Right. But it's okay to have a friend who's gay.
One of the things I like to talk about is when we're you know, the ladies brought this up too earlier, that we have to be comfortable being uncomfortable, and that's what Malik was talking about. We have to be okay with being challenged, not because someone's being argumentative, just so we can develop a proper higher thought process. And then only then we can strategically have an analysis of how we can then move forward as a community, as a culture, and as men. Because that's a conversation, and I'm glad I'm able to have this forum on Black Coffee conversation that we need to have more often, so people can say, well, I think this. We're not trying to be argumentative, but we want to have a conversation.
Yeah, that's a big problem right now. There's not a lot of room to have those conversations, to let your thoughts be free. Mm-hmm. It's either, if you say something, you're put into a box of this side, left or right, instead of letting those thoughts just flow, you know?
Yeah, because I'm from the belief that dialogue leads to organization leads to results. So you have to have that dialogue first. But again, we need that organization. We need the people to band together and what Malik was talking about, find out what that ask is, what we're asking about. But you have to have that dialogue first. That's going to lead to that organization, those groups of people that's going to band together to get what we want.
Because after it's all said and done, we've said it already, that after all this protesting is done, are we organized? We're not.
I was out of Ferguson came Black Lives Matter.
Right.
So hopefully something good comes from this. Once the emotions die down, because there's a pattern, it's a vicious pattern.
Like a brush fire.
Yeah, but I don't see it changing. That's the sad thing, right? I don't see it changing. And why would it change, right? What's going to happen is the powers that be, right? The system that's in place is going to sit back and allow this to happen.
Right.
Right? Insurance policy is going to pay out the insurance for all burnt buildings and busted up windows. But the system is still in place. Right? Police unions, once again, lobbyists in D.C. are going to make sure the police unions are taken care of. Right? They're going to be okay. Will this officer be prosecuted? We'll see. Will he be convicted? We'll see. History tells me he won't.
Right.
And what do we do with that? Right? So we heard that expression, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. It's saying, what are we going to do differently?
And you know what also bothers me the most is that, you know, I look at things like this, and like I said, I'm hurt, I'm sad, I'm bothered by it, but then I look at this like the holidays or that Christmas thing or Thanksgiving, that whole month where everyone's kind until after the New Year, everyone's giving each other pleasantries. And then, like you said, Malik, and you guys are saying, after this died down, now what do we do? So why aren't we organizing, even in the midst of this chaos, and pull these brothers over and say, hey, come join my organization, sign up, so next week we're doing this, we're doing that, like the Black Panthers did. Come sign up so we can do better, so we can help our kids eat in school, so we can educate our kids, so we can elevate them to a new heightened level of not just being angry, but being aware. Right, Malik? Mike, Chris? Like, be aware of the situation you're in. Be able to be in that room when you are with white gays. Be able to be amongst your friends, wherever color they are, and still be able to say, yes, I'm a black man. Yes, I am bothered by this situation. I don't like this conversation. These are my thoughts. We are not getting to that point.
Yeah, you know, the biggest thing is, I think, to answer your question, Dr. Paul, is I think we're waiting on that person to be like, oh, okay, with that superhero, we're waiting for Black Panther, we're waiting for like a Lester Turner, we're waiting for that super nigga to help us out. That person is not there. You know, you gotta do it in where you stand in the platform that you have. You gotta look yourself in the mirror. You gotta be a part of that change. You have to start it, because there's no superhero, there's no Black Panther out here, only in the movies. You gotta do it. You gotta take the initiative to start that dialogue and to be that change that you want to see.
So,
you guys agree on that?
yeah, I do. I was just... So, why do you think we are waiting on that super nigger?
I just want the record to show, like, that's Russ. I'm not waiting. Right? I'm organized.
I'm just saying the average person.
But we're not. But Malik, we're not really talking about you because you're here. But we are talking about. There's people who sit back and wait. I mean, a lot of us has played sports on this thing, and there's times even in your team that's like, I'm sick of losing, and you like, well, why aren't you hitting the gym? And you're like, well, and so you still, that same caliber of person is still going to wait around to be on a championship team, but won't take it upon themselves to make a championship team.
Yeah, like take for example Michael Jordan, The Last Dance. He was tired of getting beat up by Detroit Pistons. So what did he do? He joined the Breakfast. He did the Breakfast Club, lifting weights. You know, he took it upon himself. He stood where he was. He was playing it where he was, and then that's how he was able to branch out. So yeah, that person isn't coming. But again, to answer your question, Dr. Paul, that takes hard work for people to do. Maybe people don't want to put in that work to be that person.
See, for me, it kind of goes. I'm sorry, go ahead, Wesley.
No, I think Russ is right, and Luke's right in this aspect. To be that super person, we have to empower our own selves, like becoming more familiar with the policies that are out there, just knowing what's going on in the world in that aspect, and actively engage within your community and not waiting. You can become that super that you want to be and everything, but it starts with us. We have to go ahead and start to make those changes within ourselves, and do it within our community, and then it starts to branch out from that. You know, I commend you, Malik, on what you're doing.
Someone wrote on Facebook and said that the biggest threat to our civilization is that we're being brainwashed.
Yeah.
Once again, it's baked in the system, right? This country is based on assimilation, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everyone comes here and they take on Western values or Americanized. You've heard that expression, I'm Americanized, right? When you travel, when you go outside this country, they're fascinated by the American, all right?
Mm-hmm.
But it all comes back to like assimilate into the system. So putting aside whatever your culture is, whatever like your heritage is, and all of us focus on this one thing: making the most money that we can at any cost. And that's praise. All right? That's American values. That's part of the problem. Capitalism goes along with racism that fuels this system. So what are we doing about that? What are we prepared to do? That's the bigger question. Now, what are we prepared to do? Are you prepared to be uncomfortable?
I love Malik on these panels when I'm on here with him because he's always challenging. I think it's important for us to set up systems where we can police ourselves.
Right.
Very important. You have to be able to look within, challenge yourself, understand you do some things right, you do some things wrong, but there's others underneath you who need to learn what you know. Because Malik's continually saying it, but you have to be an alpha to understand this and do the research and find it out, because we can't allow, quote unquote, the system to consistently tell us what we need to do. Because what they're telling us what we need to do is not what we need to do.
Right.
And it's leading us right down a slippery slope, which goes back to why we're here to begin with. There are patterns that tell us this will continually happen until we do something ourselves. They'll tell you, listen, Chris, we're going to put in a law. We're going to do something to stop it. And it continues. The patterns are telling us this. Chris, we're going to throw you some money this way to help you out for now. The patterns are telling us it's going on over and over. So we need to look within ourselves, go over with our young people, the Caleb of the world. Caleb, what do we need to do to empower you so you don't fall into these situations?
That's a great question.
We need more education.
From
We
who?
need more education. from people of our color, from black color. Because even in elementary school, I think Martin Luther King is the only man with skin that we learned about in history class. Everyone else is a white hero. Everyone else is a white hero that we learned about. We didn't learn that Africa was fine until they invaded, and we didn't know anything about, like, they made Africa seem like they're such a lesser continent, and it's so weird because Africa is much more than that. But it's so weird how we didn't learn anything about Africa, nothing about that.
And so that kind of reinforces my point, right? It's all about design.
But you know what, Malik? We didn't build our own schools. I'm not saying we should have segregated and separated, but blacks never built our own schools and say, let's educate our youth. You know, okay, because you're right, because there's a lot of men who are in prison. There's a lot of absentee dads. There's a lot of issues with the culture that systematically separated the black man from its family. Okay, and that is well been talked about, but we never thought about educating our own black children in our own black schools, not because we wanted to teach them only black culture, but to let them know who they are and who they could be, because we will rise.
So I'm gonna push back on that a little. My father, right, was the first to integrate his high school in a little place called Cape Charles, Virginia, on the eastern shore of Virginia.
Okay.
Right? Before that, there were black schools. Right? Now, ironically, these black schools were started by white, rich white men who wanted to give back.
Okay.
Right? But in these small little schools, right, that they were educated by, black educators, right? They went to historical black institutions and came down all around the country to these schools and educated our children, our black children, right? Then integration happened, right? So then we wanted, like, once again, we thought the white man's water was colder. So we wanted that.
No, I know what we wanted was equal education.
Yeah.
Right? We didn't want because we didn't have the books. So we didn't want our own books. We wanted just equal education. That's why we went into segregation, because we didn't have high quality books. We didn't have high quality. So that's why we went into segregation. And then all of a sudden we went into simulation. And then once we went into assimilation, we lost all kinds of the nation.
Yeah, we lost our identity.
Yeah.
So now what happens is, once again, the only way we're going to know where we go forward is to look at history.
Yes.
All right? So in the 70s, who was the cool guy, the person that we all wanted to be? Right? I had this conversation a couple of weeks ago. Superfly.
Yep.
Right?
O'Neal.
Who was Superfly? Right? He was this person who was
too young for that.
in capitalism, but he was destroying our community. Right? But he was the cool guy because he had all the trappings of success, monetary success. Right? Let's fast forward to like late 80s, early 90s. Who do we emulate? The rappers. But it wasn't just the rappers. It was like the hardest. You had to be hard. Right? Be willing to kill your own, right, to get respect. Right? Who's putting those messages out? Right? And keep this in mind, right? Not only are white people like taking these messages and absorbing them, but our children are, globally, is going around the world, and that's the image that they have of blackness.
That narrative.
Who puts those messages out?
Yeah.
It's systematic. Right? So we gotta tackle the system. I'll be honest with you, and this is probably a hard thing to say.
So
I don't see this ending during my generation.
Okay.
I'm gonna see it ending during my son's generation.
So
It will end. But it takes us to update the system. You got the iPhone, you gotta update the
Right.
system. Right? Some people don't want to update the system.
to put Caleb on blast, because he is the youngest brother here, you said that there's a lot of misinformation, and we all agree, and you say you get your own information, and that's great. The problem is here's my personal question. How do your age group and you can't speak for everyone, I get that, and I don't want you to, because this is like putting you on blast, but how does a person keep being inquisitive even at your age when you know there's false information?
You have to come from a righteous morale, meaning like the things that they're telling us has to come from a good morale. When it's fishy, like CNN or Fox News, I don't look at just information that I agree with. I'll look at sources from BBC, Fox News, CNN, combine all that information together to see which one weighs over the other. So if one thing's true more than the other, then I'll weigh it out. But I don't want to just go to one news station for all my information.
So how many arguments, and an argument is a bad term because it means people aren't listening to each other, but how many heated conversations are you having with whomever, and how does that sound to you? How does that sound? What are those sounds?
The heated conversations?
Yeah.
About what?
About
like
any,
about,
it doesn't matter about anything, like, because I think, like, when we come from, like, Russ, and correct me if I'm wrong, when we come from this type of generation where we're at, whether it be sports or anything, we may have a heated conversation, but we're going to give each other a hug and a dat and be like, I'll talk to you later, brother. You know what I mean? It's not like, man, I'm done with your noise. I'm out. I'm not even going to talk to you no more. That's
the attitude portrayed now, though. It's I'm done with you. If you have that point of view, I'm done with you. Like when you see it on social media, Twitter, like did you see what the president said? If you support him, you're on that side. Like we're way too divided left and right. We're just way divided left or right. I don't know.
Yeah. So my only pushback to that, Caleb, is where's this information being?
What's that?
Where's the information being? So you take a New York Times, right? There's once a system in place, right, to vet this information and make sure the information that they put out is accurate. Now with social media, and this is 2016. This is how the Russians like infiltrated the election. They just started putting a lot of fake information, and once you don't even, it doesn't have to be true. You just have to question it. No, you just have to say, oh, you know what? It sounds good. It could be like 5% of the truth. The rest is BS. But they've done their job. They have you questioning like valid information. So that's my only pushback. There's a lot of information out there. That's like the gift and the curse. Who's vetting the information?
And I think we can have forums like this where kids or youth or anyone anywhere could be like, I heard this. What do you guys? Because this is a panel. We got 6 different minds, 6 different emotions, 6 different processors. What do you guys think of this? And so we could hash this out. And because this is not about what I think or what Chris thinks, this is about us thinking. And that's the important part.
And so many people don't think. That's why panels like this is so important. And allowing young people like Caleb and younger to be a part of it and witness it, and we mentor. You could make a great example, Malik. You talk about looking at information and having an open mind when you see additional information. Now, earlier today, I heard they were saying when they went over their autopsy report, Floyd had some issues with his heart. Respiratory. So, what we saw on a video with our own eyes, where a man has a knee on his neck, did not cause him to die. He had other issues. So, you can rationally think about that, but you can't allow the wool to go over your eyes and say, you know what, that was probably the case.
Right.
Yeah, to open your eyes up and understand. And again, it goes back to the emotions, because it's an emotional process. It all has been emotional for years. Now, Malik, I love the example you used about your father. My father and I have great conversations. He's in his late 70s. He went to integrated schools. Integrated school, rather, in high school. He tells me stories of the white kids having a better football field, the white kids having better books. Everything was hand-me-down. I said, Dad, how do you feel about that? It didn't bother me. I was cool. How can you be cool with that? That had to bother you. It has to. But mentally, he has developed where, you know what? I can't allow. So over the time, it didn't bother him. Or he's saying it doesn't bother him. But that had to have an effect. You're looking at someone else just like you. Everything they have is better than yours. So that's implanted in your mind over time.
And I think that's what, Chris, you're talking about, and that's a great conversation for all of us to have, is what type of impact, because it did impact you, it did infect you, it didn't have to have an effect on you, but it did infect you. So when you develop a trauma state or a positional state of seeing the other, you're going to reflect on yourself. Once you see something other, right? You have no way. Your brain has to calibrate. What about me, right? And I think that's where the information creates such a distraction that it's hard for people, because like you said, Chris, people don't think. And if you're not going to think, you're never going to raise above into your thought process, into your higher thought process of level of mind. So you stay in the lower level of survival and say, no, not me, and I'm just going to be mad. And the ladies have talked about this earlier. I think also our culture, black culture, has been looked at as a joke. And we have been broken for so long that only we can fix us. Like, we don't need to have that super person to come out, that hero, that super fly to say, hey, I'm here, look at me, look what I can do. And you know what? It almost hurt us that Obama became president, because we were like, oh, man, a black president, we cool, we're good. And we did nothing. We did nothing.
He warned us. He definitely warned us. It was like, the problems with people. But here's what I'm going to say. We live life on levels. And we enter in stages. Right? So there's levels to everything. Right? This society has done a great job of always making us chase that next level. Right? And once again, it's tied back into capitalism. So we can't get away from this. Right? So, Chris, going back to you, like, your pops, he probably didn't care what the other schools were doing because he was being taught for love. Right? And he already knew what he had. And he appreciated that. So when you travel, when you go outside this country, there are other countries that are, like, there's love in those communities. Right? They're not thinking about, like, the American way. Right? Even though this country spends millions of dollars to promote that, they're surrounded with love. So I think we also have to remember that too, right? Like, it's designed for us to constantly be chasing, right? So that person probably doesn't have the time to do the research because they're constantly working like an 8-hour shift all the time. They got a family to support. They're trying to chase that materialistic, whatever it is. Whatever America, whatever society says, this is that next level. They're constantly chasing that.
Yeah. And Chris, to piggyback on like your dad's situation, us as black males, especially older black males, we suppress our feelings, we suppress that trauma, we put that in the back. So him responding to you like saying, it didn't bother me, because again, all that is suppressed back there. So, I mean, that's the thing that we have. The trauma that we have as black people, as black men, is a lot of the emotions and everything with it is so suppressed back there that it never, when it does come out, it could be something deadly. But, I think that's the case on that. But again, Chris, I really want to piggyback what you talked about. You talked about how we need to police ourselves, which is so important. And not only that, it's twofold. Because when you police yourselves, we have to keep each other accountable for our actions as well when we're policing ourselves. So I just wanted to make sure that didn't go unnoticed, because that's so important. Policing ourselves, but we got to keep each other accountable for our actions when we're policing ourselves.
So do we need to do a better job in policing ourselves when we check each other, when we check a brother, when we check each man, a young man, we check our community, that we don't get upset that someone pushes back on us. Because I think that silences us too. Like, hey, I checked you, Wesley, and all of a sudden you give me lip, and I'm like, man, I'm done talking to him. Like Caleb said, they're like, you're on the other side, I'm done.
Yeah, it's all about checking, but you can check somebody with love. Again,
Right.
What you say is how you say. For example, if I told you, like, hey, look, I think you're stupid. But again, if I said it like, you know what, I think you're stupid, man. It's just your approach and where you said it. So you can check with somebody in love, because you're coming with that person, you're coming with that generosity, that empathy. So just check with somebody with love. Respect your brother with that love that you're going to give forth to him.
What seems illogical to me, with the police officers, having so many white police officers patrol neighborhoods they've never lived in. Like, why couldn't we just have a system for people that do get out of jail, train them in education to then patrol their own community and help their community get better? We have a lot of people that have never been in that community, and they get nervous. White people get nervous, and then you got situations like George Floyd. So,
yeah. And Caleb, you make a great point, because you see a lot of police officers, especially here in New York. Let's take New York, for example. They come into like a Brooklyn, Queens, Harlem, what have you, but they don't live in those communities. So
Westchester.
Working and they leaving. So that's the problem in itself, in which they need to be a part of these communities which they work at.
Well, Malik has said something that it keeps resonating. A lot of that's purposeful.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, a lot of that is purposeful, and it's not purposeful by meaning that when I hire said police officer of different race, that I'm saying, when I put you into this neighborhood, you make sure you police them the way you need to. That is not verbally said, but it's so implied, because I am taking you from Westchester or Upper Yonkers, and I am putting you in Brooklyn or Harlem. And you're going to be like, it's like, what do you think is going to happen when you take a match and throw it in the woods? It's going to smolder, and eventually it's going to erupt.
But I hate to do this, right? But I'm going to push back.
With love, Malik, with love.
Right? No, yeah, with love. There you go. With love. I was in Savannah, right? My wife and I was in Savannah, and we did a tour. And one of the guys mentioned that the most successful overseers on the plantation were black men, right? Because in the slave patrol,
Right.
they were black men,
Right.
right? Because they knew the area. So when you think about like Baltimore, right? Remember there were police officers, they didn't handcuff a guy in the back of the van. No, they did I forgot what they call it, the something ride, the rough ride. They were black officers, right? So it goes back to that assimilation, right? My sister just retired. She was a sergeant in New York City Police Department. And one of the things she talked about was the culture, the police culture. Like, you got to come in there and you got to assimilate to that culture, black, white, whatever you are. You got to assimilate to that culture. And there's already a culture in place. So, and their culture is they're policing, right, for the other, right? So their view of us when they see us is already implicit. It's already implied. They have a view of black bodies when they see it, black, white, whatever it is. So let's not get caught up. Like, I agree with you, there should be more of us policing, but we got to work on that culture.
Of course. All good teams, all good organizations are able to police themselves.
Yes.
I've played on some very good teams. Like you just stated, Malik. The culture was changed. We didn't need our coach to tell us everything. We knew when guys weren't practicing hard. We knew guys were cutting the corner. We would take care of that before it got to the coach.
Mm-hmm.
That's part of policing yourself. Organizations, like you said, you will have someone who's a foreman or someone who will take care of that group, so it doesn't have to get to the CEO. But we have to implement this into our communities. It's not that hard. It really isn't.
Right, and
you're talking to Caleb. His uncle telling him something. You're policing things within your family, in your house. You don't need a police officer to come in your house and tell Caleb what to do.
I agree with that. But keep in mind, there were 3 other officers present, right? They tell us, take anything off them, that's successful.
That's the microcosm of our world. That was it in a nutshell right there. An inferior man on top of a larger man, and everybody around who should help won't help.
Yep, and those 2 other officers had their knees on his legs, so no way in hell he could get up.
Yeah, wasn't one of them a minority too? It was like an Asian officer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
He was a standby guy. He was keeping the pedestrians at bay. Yeah.
And,
While the other guys just laid on him.
and we also just heard that the cop that had his knee on the neck, they had worked together. They were security guards together at some club or something like that. So, I mean, again, this is still, were there other issues with both of them together? You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? So, but that's still, even if that was the case, there's a bigger picture to this that I hope we don't get narrowed viewed into being like this is isolated. This isn't isolated. This is a problem. It always has been a problem. It will continue to be a problem, like we have totally said, until we fix it, we police ourselves, we disseminate the information, we change the narrative, and look at yourself in the mirror and say, I need to be better. Right? And to be uncomfortable, with who you are and what you think you need to be. I mean, and a lot of people who are rioting, they're angry, but they're not uncomfortable. You know what I mean?
I'm talking about people being uncomfortable. I'll give you this here. I'm not so righteous, but oftentimes I do feel I'm an alpha male. I've been the guy in situations where I'll step to an officer and say, well, leave this guy alone. I think he's okay. What happened here? I think more of us could do that. We always see people with their cameras out, videotaping everything, but it's not that hard on different occasions
to say something.
Just to step and say a couple of words to make sure things don't go out of hand. I've done it on many occasions, and it hasn't been that difficult. Like, listen, what's going on over here with this young man? Is he okay? Oh, he did this. All right, well, you know what did he see? Did he take that? Here's the money for this. So something simple. Simple as that can take some things from 7 to a 3 before it gets to a 10. But we have everybody with their cameras out. When I watch it myself, this is me personally. Why didn't someone just step over and say, is there something we can do?
Right.
Is there something we can do so this doesn't happen? I recently saw maybe a video. I thought it was Denzel Washington.
It was.
And to assist somebody.
Yep.
Not where that was going to go, but it was very simple. Again, he wasn't angry. His emotions were intact. Is everything okay? Is there something I can do to help here so this guy doesn't get too angry himself? So you guys don't get too angry. So we all can go back to our families when it's all said and done. That's part of my thought process of policing ourselves. Because it can't. Now, Russ, you've seen me do it, and it works. Now, everybody doesn't have the capability of doing it. I'm well aware of that. But I see guys like us on this panel, we can do it, and we can teach and empower others to do it where no one gets hurt.
Yeah. I think sometimes, Smooth, though, it depends on the situation. Like you talked about, like, why didn't those, I'm assuming what you're saying is why didn't those, like, people try to assist, like, tell the officer to knock it off? Is that what you're saying?
Quite possibly, again, in this case here, it could be different, but it's too many that occur where something could be done. I don't know all the logistics on this one. Possibly someone could have done it. I believe if I was there, maybe I would have been one of the people who would say, listen, is everything okay here? I don't know. I don't know.
But Smooth, you know what, Smooth? I like that, Smooth, too. I'm going to jump right on that Smooth wagon. One of the things that you pointed out that I don't know how you are an alpha male. And is that a key factor? Man, I hope not. But you know what? It is. It really is. You're the person that is okay with talking to a teacher in school. But there's also kids that are sitting in the classroom who are just soaking this up, and they're afraid of a lot of things. And they are never going to speak up. And then maybe that's where we get that education part that we're talking about, that mentorship, that, being able to recognize the B child, not the alpha child, but the B child, to say, hey, are you okay? And also influence that alpha male and saying, hey, have you talked to this person and how are they doing? And those young kids be like, I don't know. And you'd be like, it'd be good for you to go talk to them. You know what I mean? Instead of yelling at that teammate, how can you teach them? How can you educate them? How can you help them so you can help the team? And once you teach that alpha male to do that, then those other kids who are not alpha-ish will then be able to associate.
You hope so.
Yeah, and it's all about the sincerity in your approach. Like, for example, Caleb, I'm sure, like, you as a young person, you can weed out a non-genuine person, a person who doesn't have your best interest. So it's all about your sincerity in your approach. If you're going to take the sincerity of helping out your fellow young person or what have you, it's all about the sincerity in which you bring forth to the conversation on that. So it's all about that, because younger people, as you know, Caleb, and you can contest to this, I mean, you can weed out a rat, you can read out a person that's not sincere. Like when you first see him or you first hear him talk, you can do that. So it's all about that sincerity, your approach to get that done.
I love having this conversation. I call it the Black Coffee Conversation, real talk about real issues, and we'll have more panel talk. I don't want to extend this too much longer. I know we're in a trauma state. I do believe that. I do also believe that we were never taught how to mourn. I also believe that we were never taught how to express ourselves as much as we should have or be able to, or learn how to disseminate information, or ask for help and saying, hey, I heard this, I thought this, I've seen this, what do you think about this? I know I think this, what do you think? So I'm going to go around to give you last thoughts. So Smooth, what do you got?
Look, and I think it's so important to have forums just like this, where you have educated men who can express themselves, where their emotions are intact. I started off by discussing, oftentimes we don't handle our emotions as well as men, especially black men, because we have so many emotions that we don't tap in. Again, our default has been anger for years. We have to get off anger, be able to have these type of discussions, communicate with each other, and learn. It's a learning process. And I love what Malik has said throughout the entire process here. You have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. That's how you learn. You can't get angry and fly off the handle.
Malik, go ahead.
Yeah. One, I just want to thank you for inviting me to this, right? And just dialoguing with you brothers, so I appreciate that. I got two takeaways. One, I want to encourage every black man out there that's listening to this to mentor that next generation, right? I say this all the time. I think being a man is first being responsible for yourself, then being responsible for your immediate family, right? And then once you have that, taking responsibility for your community, going out there. Like, if you have been blessed, it is incumbent upon you to be a blessing to that next person, right? So that's one thing. The second thing is, we gotta vote, guys.
Yeah.
We have to vote.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And not just get out there and vote, but depending on the state you live in, I want you to get involved and adopt another state, right? North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Michigan. Those are 4 swing states, right? That turned the last election, right? Once again, Donald Trump is not the problem. He's a symptom of the problem, right? But if we really want to see change, not just in the presidential election, but the local election, the state election.
The judges.
We got to vote during like the midterms. We got to get out there and vote. Right? If you want to see any change, we got to vote, and also we got to come together and figure out what's our agenda.
Right.
Right? What are our deliverables?
Caleb?
I think it's important that we get comfortable being uncomfortable. Because me growing up still to this day, like talking in front of big crowds makes me uncomfortable. But it also helps me express myself. So I think being uncomfortable is one of the best things, and having a platform like this to be able to have free thought and not be on one side or the other. So I really like things like this where you can talk, have free thought, but not be put in a box on one side or the other.
I want to say that we have to be able to recognize what's broken within us so we can work on that, so that is the microcosm of what's broken in our community. So we're able to talk about the things that has affected us emotionally, mentally, and or physically, economically. Because if, like Malik said, if we don't understand what's our agenda, if you don't even understand your own personal agenda, how can you even help an agenda when you don't even know if that resonates with you? So you have to understand who you are and what you're going to resonate with. And the only way to resonate, meaning vibrate, meaning to change, is to raise yourself from the lower stages of only survival. You have to get into where your service to others and community and to life. And Wesley, go ahead.
Yeah. You know, I want to echo the sentiment of Malik. Congressman John Lewis is talking about good trouble and those type of things, and within a community and mentoring, which I'm doing with the 100. I think that's essential to have stepping up to come and talk with the youth and talk about how things are from perspectives to help learn more and being more involved as far as knowing what the policies are, how they impact our communities, and how we can be stronger overall together, just like that village concept.
Russ?
Yeah, I appreciate the forum, Dr. Paul, that you provide as well. It's just a sentiment, everybody else's, echo everybody else's sentiments. For me, it's all about having that conversation that leads to change. And it's all about, like, each one teaching approach. You know, you going out there and just, you know, being sincere in your approach and just talking about, you know, with people how I'm here to help you and how we can learn from one another and ask each other how we're feeling. You know, get the thoughts out there. How are you feeling as a young person? How am I feeling as an older person? Get the thoughts out there, get the feelings. Don't suppress the feeling, those thoughts. Get it out there in terms of dialogue. And I think we do that each one teach one approach. I think it'll benefit everybody in the long run.
Thank you, my friends. Thank you, my brothers. I'm going to lead us out in prayer, and then after prayer, we're just going to really enter this. If most of you people want to know how to watch this complete video, you can always go to my YouTube channel, Dr. Paul, Dyer Grandmaster, or you can go to my podcast channel, Bridges Live with Dr. Paul. You can always replay this, share this, like this. We have a conversation. We need to keep the conversation. We will have more conversations, and it's not about a topic, it's about conversations. So a lot of times people say, well, what's the topic? Well, if that's the only reason why you can have a conversation, then you're missing the community part of talking. Because it's not about what it is I'm talking about. It's just about joining into the community of the talk. So please bow your heads. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing all these young men together so we can have a conversation. So we know that we can keep you in the midst, dear Lord, that we know that in our struggles, in our time, we should not look to man, but we should look to our higher power and our higher selves and to keep the light on you. So we can denounce the anger and the hatred and the bigotry and the selfishness and the victimizing of our own selves and victimizing of our community. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing these strong men together so we can fix our community, fix ourselves, and so we can fix our nation. So, dear Heavenly Father, I like to say thank you and praise Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen.